Hello everybody and welcome to a Bazaar card reveal video. If you are new here, my name is Retromation. I'm currently uploading the Bazaar every day at a decently high level while trying to use a variety of different builds. I have a spreadsheet where I'm trying to get a 10 win with every item in the game on my final board. That spreadsheet is currently around a 70% completion. If that is the kind of thing that sounds interesting to you, perhaps you could subscribe. Otherwise, let's just get to what you actually came here for. So I was fortunate enough to be given 5 of the 10 new cards to reveal from Mac's upcoming Dangerous Experiments pack for Season 2. So the first card we're going to show off here is Barbed Claws. It is a small bronze starting weapon, 5-second cooldown, do 5 damage. This has +1 multicast for each player with poison. So if they have poison and you have poison, this will hit 3 times. Which, on a 5-second cooldown, is very, very good if you can get that to line up. The other cards in the pack, as you would probably guess, are going to help you line that up. But frankly, even if you just run this as a 2x multicast in a build that applies some poison, that's already quite good. Mac likes Fang, and that would already be technically more value than Fang. Not to mention, if you just happen to run into somebody with poison, they gift you a triple multicast. So, like, I think in general this is good, and it has the potential just to be great. With a little bit of setup, it's good. A little bit more setup, it's fantastic. You can slot this by Venom. It's really, really good, which is just when you use the weapon to the left of this, apply poison. You can see how that could be good. That's a lot of poison applications. It fulfills the multicast, or at least part of it. This is fantastic in Poppy Field, or just anywhere that you want a lot of fast activations. Good with left-handed, right-handed, that kind of stuff. Also, I think that one of the things I'm most excited about is the small bronze item pool for Mac has a lot of things where I'm kind of annoyed if I get transformed into them from a reagent, you know, like an hourglass or something. This is an addition to the small bronze item pool where you're going to be getting a lot of like incidental random enchanted items by transforming stuff with catalysts. I don't think that there's a single enchant from those reagents that can be on Barbed Claws that I would be disappointed with. So this just seems nice because you're going to get good enchants on this and it'll use them well. I think that this thing seems fantastic, honestly. So like with the Dually Pack reveal video that I did, I also reached out to some other content creators and friends to see what they thought of these items, if there's anything I missed. So Raresh and Metal Phoenix both think that this may be the most impactful edition of this pack. I think it could be. It's the first one. We'll get to it. Raresh was the one who mentioned that it could be very strong early game with Venom. I do agree with that very strongly. Justicetom mentioned that Lashed Out from Viper becomes an even bigger hit than it already is. That is the skill from Viper that is, at the start of combat, poison your enemy for 3. That's very true because you could just start combat with a multicast on Barbed Claws in the early game. It just seems very useful. The next item is going to be Fungal Spores. It is a small bronze starting item with a 4-second cooldown. Your poison items gain 2 poison for the fight. So apparently, to my surprise, this was too strong and got nerfed. It is maybe at like a 5-second cooldown now, if I remember correctly. It could be changed by the time these cards actually come out. But it seems to me like it could be good if the meta slows down a little bit. It's very fast right now. But I do think it is still going to be a really good like day 1 item, day 2 item. Basically the days where Emerald would be good, I think you could see yourself running a Fungal Spores as well. I will say I did think that this had a poison on it. Like it applied a poison. And I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. It does not seem to be the case. I don't know, maybe it will get a poison on it. In that case, I think it becomes quite a bit better because it does say your poison items. It would include itself. You could luck into a toxic enchant. Makes it a little bit better. But yeah, you're going to need a longer fight for this to be useful. But it's a good way to ramp your board if you are not lucking into like multiple emeralds. So as far as other creators go, Admirable, who plays a lot of Mac, thinks that this is going to be quite good early, and getting a few activations of it off is not going to be that hard, especially if you're taking a lot of HP nodes. And Snazer mentioned that this could shine a lot in the slower-paced PvE fights as well as early game. PvE fights that are not, like, in your face typically can reward something that goes long like this a little bit more. Next up, we have the Infused Bracers, which is a medium gold starting apparel tool item with a 5-second cast of poison both players for 5. Why would you want to do that? Well, when you poison yourself, your weapons gain plus damage for the fight equal to 1 times the amount poisoned, and the weapon to the left of this gains lifesteal. So, a couple things to note about this. It is definitely more niche in its use cases, but one thing to keep in mind, poison both players does count as 2 poison procs. You're poisoning twice. Yes, you are one of the players getting poisoned, but that's good for activations of some cards, like an Ouroboros statue, you know, Spider Mace, like fill in the blank. There's things that care about number of poison triggers, and that is 2 of them, so there's that. I think that the lifesteal on this card helps bridge the gap between this archetype and kind of like the runic build archetype he has, all of the lifesteal weapons. And, you know, if you have a lifesteal weapon, it gains 100% crit, or haste your lifesteal weapons, like that kind of stuff Mac has access to. This bridges that gap, and that is a build that I think has a very hard time getting the flat damage numbers up, so maybe this could be useful in some kind of hybrid build there. Also worth noting that with poisoning yourself, lifesteal weapons, when they attack the enemy player, instead of you, I guess, I don't know. When you attack with a lifesteal weapon, you will cleanse 1 poison as well. So just hitting with a bunch of lifesteal weapons, you will mitigate this poison on yourself, potentially more than the enemy, who knows. It is worth noting that the Infused Bracers, when they upgrade to Diamond, get the text, when you poison yourself, your weapons gain plus damage for the fight equal to 2 times the amount poisoned, so quite a big power boost to them by upgrading them. As far as other players go, Raresh thinks that this is a good run finisher in the situation where the self-poison archetype is good enough to function without them, and then maybe you find this later in the game, and it can help you close out the game and help you get it to 10. Justicetom thinks that this could be good by a Ritual Dagger, which is the weapon where when you attack with it, you gain regen equal to its damage. This is a way to, you know, buff up that damage and thus get more regen. More regen can help you mitigate the poison on yourself from this kind of archetype. I can see that as well. Next up is the Optical Augment, a small bronze starting tool. At the start of the fight, poison yourself for 4. The item to the left of this has plus crit chance equal to your poison. So this one is quite strange. It's a little bit feast or famine. It seems like it's not going to be good early to me, but it does start at bronze. I wouldn't be surprised if this someday got moved to silver or something like that, because 4 poison on day 1 is terrifying to have happen to yourself. But it is a good way to start the combat out, making it easy to get your triple cast on Barbed Claws, for example, from this pack. Obviously, it also helps link this archetype to kind of the crit archetype, like a Magic Carpet would like this a lot. Also worth considering if you happen to run into a poison matchup, this could just give one of your items 100% crit, basically like on accident, which is a nice reward, I suppose. I do think that the main strength of this is going to lie in like the start of combat aspect. We do know that History of Bazaar, cards that have the words at the start of the fight do anything, do literally anything, can be very, very good. You can get a start of combat freeze off by getting like when you poison freeze. If you're poisoning yourself, it doesn't matter. It would still count for that. You could, you know, use some of the items revealed in Snazer's kit. I will get to that a little bit later, but I'll be linking that in the description. There's an item that will give you start of combat haste for poisoning yourself, basically. So I think that that's going to be the main way this is going to get used, personally. But Mac does have a very hard time getting a fast start, and this actually might be his trick for getting that. As far as other creators' opinions, Snazer says that it can be a mini-rigged, the skill that gives you haste at the start of combat, and it's worth running even if just for that, but not to run it early. Raresh says that you could slot this into that kind of Mortar and Pestle, Magic Carpet early game that is quite popular among Macs. It will help you shut down any enemy that has poison, because you'll give yourself crit. The Magic Carpet gets cooldown reduction when you crit. You could see how that could be quite useful there, obviously. And you'll have a Lifesteal Magic Carpet, which goes off a bunch, which will cleanse off your poison, theoretically. And finally, we have the big man of the pack. It is the Test Subject Alpha, a large silver starting weapon friend. You heard it right, friend. This is friendlier than a piranha, confirmed. It is an 11-second item that does 50 damage, but it also has the text, when you use an adjacent item, poison both players for 10. Whenever you poison, this gains damage for the fight equal to the amount poisoned. So this is the obvious big payoff for the kind of self-poison archetype. You can use it not in that archetype as well, but whenever you're doing something like poison both players for 10, that is, effectively poisoning 20. So an important note is the way this upgrades is that it gets cooldown reduction. It goes from 11 to 9 to 7, and it also goes from when you use an adjacent item poison both players 10 to 10, 20, 30. So those are the ways this upgrades. That is quite important. When I showed this to the other creators, they had a different version of this card. It had like a 30-second cooldown, a bunch of charge. Keep that in mind as I talk about it. So the neat thing is I actually think this is a more flexible card than it seems, because you can also just use it as a way to spit out a lot of poison triggers. When you use an adjacent item, it will poison, 2 times, one for them, one for you. So things like an Ouroboros statue love that. Spider Mace, maybe leeches, if that's a better card in this meta, who knows? Things like that. But obviously it works very well with the Infused Bracers. That's a lot of poison on you and thus a lot of damage on all of your weapons, meaning that the Test Subject Alpha will be getting, damage equal to twice the poison you apply to yourself, or even more if it is a Diamond Bracers. I do think, especially if you're not going to be using the sort of sustain side of the kit, the 5 cards that Snazer revealed the other day, again, I will link them, I'll talk about them in a little bit, you are going to want to make sure you're killing on the first hit, because you are going to be taking a lot of damage. You need to make sure you are converting that into something that will probably kill at 11 seconds. Ways to do that are potentially, putting the Optical Augment on the right of this to give it 100% crit. That could be a good way to ensure that it is a big, juicy hit. But even that, then you don't have something that is adjacent to it that's activating it. But it is worth considering. You'll need to kill fast if you're not building some kind of sustain with this. Other players had a lot to say about this card, which makes sense because it's kind of the big flashy payoff of the archetype. Raresh and Admirable both said if this card is good, it could be useful in providing another direction if you are hoping to find a poppy field, and you don't. You're probably going to be building in the same general way until you find your big payoff card. This just gives you another hit. Walter Coolis mentioned that he loves that it cares about the poison number. I do as well. That was actually the first thing I said to Toby, the card designer of this. And I agree. I think that it actually is trying to blend together the weapons and the other types of poison builds instead of just trying to cheat out poison triggers. It could blend well with a retort or something like that just has a large poison number. It could reward you there. Walter Coolis also mentioned it could work in a build like Satchel, or you typically run a lot of fast, small, infinite potions. You can put them on either side of the Test Subject Alpha, and it'll help you mitigate poison with regen, as that's the one where whenever you reload, you gain regen. That kind of a thing. Also mentioned in the previous 30-second version that it could work in Library. I do think it still could, actually, even with the fact that it has been changed since then, because you could get a lot of fast non-weapon triggers by it. Library increases the cooldown of weapons, but decreases the cooldown of non-weapons. It could be useful still to ensure that that first hit is a really big one. Justicetom mentioned that you could even consider playing this card with nothing on its adjacencies on purpose if you need to kind of tone back the self-damage. I think this could especially be true if you find this early on in your run where maybe 10 poison is going to impact you a lot with a lower health Mac than a pig or something like that. So maybe knowing when to maybe not have fast triggers on both sides is also key to this card. Sonny just mentioned that he loved the theming of this pack, and this card especially. I do agree. I think the theming and the flavor of this card is great. I love it. He is a friend. He is my friend. He's all of our friends. So the other players' thoughts on the 5 cards as a set. In general, Admirable thought there are a couple good early tools for Mac and a new direction. Metal Phoenix said that he thinks we'll be seeing even more Poppy Field if it isn't nerfed in some way. I do think I agree with that. We'll have to see if it gets, impacted in some way before it comes out. Snazer mentioned that the whole pack together seems extremely strong, but it may be a difficult time to actually find all of the pieces to play it that way. Raresh mentioned if the meta stays fast, self-poison as a concept is strong since poison is not a very strong thing in the meta, and thus applying it to yourself isn't as bad if you can turn it into power in a different way. So basically, the worse poison is as a dot, the better it is to apply it to yourself for power. And of course, Rarin mentioned, I have no idea if these are good, but they're really interesting, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. Personally, I love these cards. I think that these 5 cards, but also the pack of 10 as a whole, are really cool. And I also think that you can weave them into other parts of Mac easier than you might think. I don't think you should be looking at these cards and think, okay, I'm going to review them exclusively as how does it impact self-poison Mac. I think that that probably will be good, but like Snazer said, I think that if you're looking to just hit all the pieces, it might be a little bit difficult. So therefore, how does this all play when you're just using one piece here and there? I think it varies. I think that some of them are more flexible than others. Like I think Barbed Claws is just so good. If this pack was Barbed Claws and 9 IOUs when you enter the shop, like I would honestly think this pack is still pretty good because that card seems so flexible, so nice to have early. Helps Mac when he needs help the most. Fungal Spores, I think, is situational. We'll have to see if it gets changed by the time it comes out. It helps him early on, and again, maybe in PvE. I think that if it gets poison itself, like if it gets the ability to apply poison, I think it'll be quite a bit stronger. I don't know. We shall see. Infused Bracers, I love it. It activates a whole new way to scale. It does come into the run a little bit late, starting at gold, but just another way for Mac to get raw numbers up is great. Like I said, his crit archetype kind of needs help with that, because currently the only reliable ways to increase your damage are Mortar and Pestle, which is way too slow for that, like by a lot. And then there is Improvised Weaponry, which is incredible and an amazing high roll hit, but if you don't get that, it's difficult to scale those numbers. So I like it potentially for that, and for obviously being a wonderful end cap for this archetype. Optical Augment, I think that this is going to be one of those ones that's kind of secretly techy and actually does a lot. The same way that you'll see a lot of like top players fish aggressively for Clamora. It's going to be harder to use Optical Augment in that way, but the fact that it does have that potential, just like the fact that it does something at the start of the combat on a character that's very slow to begin, that is absolutely reason enough to care about that item, though I do wish it was not a bronze start. I feel like that is going to be a little bit messy in his starting pool of bronze smalls for like transformations and stuff, but it is what it is. Test Subject Alpha, I love this big man. I don't know, is he going to be good? I don't care. I love him. I love his design. And also, I do think let's be real, I do think he will be good. I think he opens up some interesting spaces. I think this card is way more flexible than you might think at first glance. I think there's a lot you can do with this, especially with the new cards from Snazer. I'll probably talk about a couple thoughts here about how those new cards as well, the other half of this pack, will kind of weave in with these cards. So I'm not going to do a full in-depth like review of these cards because I want you guys to go check out Snazer's VOD where he reveals these 5 cards. He was nice enough to show them to me early so I could get more context for the whole pack as I was reviewing them. So I'm just going to talk about them and how they relate to the 5 cards that I have. So there is Wild Quillback, and the important text for my cards on here is when a player uses a weapon, poison that player for 3. So that player can be you. You can willingly poison yourself a whole lot for 3 if you want to try and take use of Infused Bracers to increase your damage that way. You could read it then as whenever you use a weapon, your weapons gain 3 damage, or 6 if it's a Diamond Bracers. Could be good, I guess with the test subject alpha to ramp its damage. I don't think that that's really going to be the main use. I think that you're going to have to be more creative with Wild Quillback than just, ham-fistedly shoving it into the other 5 cards. I think it has more synergy with the cards in Snazer's half. Venomous Dose seems incredible with the other 5 cards. Very synergistic. Poison both players for 2 and gain regen for the fight equal to this item's poison, completely nullifying the bad part of it. So it just opens up the kind of flexibility. You can obviously easily get the 3 times multicast with Barbed Claws with this. It's good with, even Fungal Spores to increase that poison that you're doing to yourself and the enemy without having to have some kind of penalty for it. It's obviously good with Infused Bracers because you're poisoning yourself with no penalty. It's great with Optical Augment because you're poisoning yourself with no penalty. This is good with all of the cards. Fantastic with Test Subject Alpha. This has synergy with all 5 of the cards that I had revealed. This is like a really key piece of the puzzle in my eyes, and you really will be looking for this probably if you're running almost anything that I revealed today. Rapid Injection System, you can see how this very easily could fit into the cards as well that I revealed. When you poison yourself, poison for 4. Whenever you use an adjacent item, poison yourself for 4 and gain 2 regen. So basically, whenever you use an adjacent item, you poison yourself and them for 4 and you gain 2 regen. So it's a good way to nullify poisoning yourself while getting lots of those triggers. Again, good way to get another cast on Barbed Claws. It could be, fine with Fungal Spores to increase that number. It's a little bit scary because you're not going to be increasing the regen. Infused Bracers obviously likes it because this is a good way to stack up the damage on your stuff. Optical Augment you could see as well, and Test Subject Alpha. All of those, they do like this card in concept as just a synergy activator. Peacewrought, I'm not really going to focus on because I don't think it has almost anything to do with the other 5 cards that I revealed here, except for maybe you could use this as a way to stack up a lot of regen to mitigate some self-poison. This is the least related to the other cards in the pack in my eyes. And saving the best for last, this card seems cracked and makes the whole archetype look fantastic to me. So, Adrenal Converter, I'm just going to take a moment on this, and I'm going to talk about the whole card because it just seems great. It is a medium silver starting apparel, 6-second cooldown, poison both players for 5. This is the kicker. This makes it all make sense. When you poison yourself, gain 10 regen for the fight, and haste an item for 2 seconds. So this has so much synergy with this kit. It's kind of the thing that really does tie it all together, but since it starts at silver, it might be a little bit trickier to find it. Obviously, the obvious thing, that. Barbed Claws loves the poison both players thing. Gives you the extra multicast. Fungal Spores, whatever. Infused Bracers loves it. This is a great way to poison yourself and gain that damage with literally no penalty, only upside. Poison yourself for 5, but gain 10 regen and haste an item? That's incredible. That is incredible. Very, very good. This is also how you could imagine with Optical Augment, the thing at start of combat, poison yourself. Well, Adrenal Converter, when you poison yourself, gain 10 regen and haste an item, so that now becomes, at the start of combat, gain 10 regen and haste an item. So that is how I see Optical Augment being used most frequently. That seems really good. Test Subject Alpha. Yeah, whenever you use an item by Test Subject Alpha, you will poison yourself, thus gaining 10 regen and hasting an item for 2 seconds. I could see this archetype using Adrenal Converter and the cards in my pack to, frankly, pretty easily get like a board of haste, which is something that is not extremely easy to do on Mac. You do need kind of to go the energy potion route. This could provide you a different way to do it without sacrificing board space on non-synergistic things. This, with the combination of my 5 cards, it all works so well together and makes kind of the archetype make even more sense. So as a whole, I just really, really like this card set. I think that it's going to be a big fun buff for Mac, a character that I already think is very fun. It's going to give him some reliable tools, but also some weird, quirky things that will act as a bridge between certain builds that don't really communicate with each other very well right now. And I'm just really, really excited to play with these. So that is it for the reveal video here, but I do want to say, go make sure to check out the other card reveal videos. The ones that I know of, Crip has the first half of the pig pack. You can go check that out. You probably already did. There's going to be a link in the description for it. I know that Snazer had the other half of these cards. I will link to the Twitch VOD. Do go make sure to check that out, and thank you to him for giving me access to the 5 cards so that I can look at my 5 with full context. And also stay tuned to Sunny's channel. I believe tomorrow he is going to be uploading the other 5 cards of the pig pack. If there are other players with other cards, I do not know. It's not a slight. Those are the ones where I know where they are. I don't know if there's going to be other cards besides the pack cards, like monster stuff or whatever. But keep your eyes peeled. There might be more cards. Who knows? Thank you for watching, though. Like I said, my name is Retromation. I upload currently Bazaar every single day, trying to go off meta, trying to still play well, but not force the same builds all the time. That's kind of my jam, if that sounds cool. You know where to find me. Thank you for watching. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.